Hello, Jay Smith here. This is a addendum to the video that I put up on Sunday, which says coins suggest Islam began much later, a synopsis. And this was a second video which followed the one a week ago on Wednesday, put up by Hatun and myself when we did a live stream on these coins. Because that was 2 hours long, and many people were saying this is just too long to watch, 2 hours. And I understand that, and that is true. It is too long. I did this synopsis, 45-minute, 47-minute synopsis, which I put up on Sunday. And already since Sunday, over 7,000 people have watched it in just the last 4 days. Now, I said both in the live stream earlier and also in this one that I wanted people to write questions. And so what I'm doing now is I'm going to look at some of the questions. I've looked down through them, and I've noticed there are some good questions. And I want to give credit to those questions, and I want to try to answer them as best I can. So this won't be a very long video. It just goes into it and tries to unpack, give answers to those questions. Quite a number of you asked how is it we can know who the images are on the coins and how we can date the coins accurately. The easy answer is, if you look at the coins carefully, the images are well known. These are images that go back, they're used over and over again, like Heracles. That's a well-known image of Heracles. Khosrau, the Sassanid king, that's a well-known image of Khosrau, and it's usually the same image that is used on all the coins. Also, the images that you had of Heracles and his two sons on either side, his name is there, and so in some cases the name is put alongside it right near the head. When you have Muawiyah's image comes up in 661, if you look inside the circle where his head is, there's also that his name is there, commander of the faithful. And the same thing with Abd al-Malik. Abd al-Malik's name is there. He puts his name there alongside his image. So that's how we do it. As far as dates, they always do put a date on the back side. On the reverse side, there's a date there. And it's not a date like we would use today. It's the date of the person whose image is on the coin, the date where they came to power. And so that's why we know the dates. Now, Khalid Al-Othman, you did a lot of great questions. In fact, I really like your questions, so I want to deal a little bit more time with you. You say here, and I'm going to go down through about 4 or 5 of your questions and try to answer them, because I think you summarize what a lot of people are thinking and what a lot of people are asking. You say Abd al-Malik tries to introduce Islamic references on the coins, and Justinian reacts with war. This proves that the early Muslims did not want to go to war against the Christian power. Thus, they were reluctant to put provocative Islamic references early when Muslims were not as strong and not as economically independent. James, that's me. My name is Jay, not James, by the way, is trying hard to give this gradual introduction of Islamic coins more meaning than it has. It simply means a gradual progression of regional power and influence of Muslims. It does not necessarily mean an evolution of Islam. And you say that very well, and you've said it a few times, and now you're not the only one. Others have said that as well. Now, since you agree that there was much control by the Byzantines over the Muslims and also by the Sassanids in the east, up until 660 or 692. The question I ask, and this is the question that needs to be answered, is where is this written up in the traditions? There is no reference to this. In fact, when you look at the Islamic traditions, it's very clear that that early Islam came into power very quickly. That Muhammad and those who came after him, the rightly guided caliphs, they moved right across the eastern part of what was Sassanid area and right across North Africa by 661, by over Tripoli over here and all the way over to Afghanistan over there. That whole swath of land came under their control and was under their control. And that's why you have individuals like Muawiyah minting his own coin with his own name on it. So it shows very clearly that they're no longer under the control of the Byzantines or the Sassanids. The Byzantines are still there. The Sassanids have been wiped out. In fact, they destroyed the Sassanids. So the traditions give that picture, and the traditions are very clear that they not only ruled that area, but they also brought in Islam as we know it today. And That's why the coins are fascinating, because the coins that they minted have their name on it, give the dates on it, but they don't say anything Islamic, and say, in fact, they say just the opposite. They have the crosses, and then they also have the fire altars for the Zoroastrians, both Christian and Zoroastrian icons. So, if this would be the case that they were coming in slowly and they did not control this land, that would have appeared in the traditions, and certainly it would have shown that really Muhammad really didn't have much control of anything, and neither did the caliphs have any much control. And this whole swath of land would not be under their control. And yet the traditions and the historical accounts do suggest very clearly that this land was under their control. And when it's under your control, one of the first things you do is you mint coins to then claim that for yourself. You mint coins by putting your name, by putting also the religion that you follow. That's why we're even asking this question. Where is this Islamic identity? It did not happen very quickly, and certainly I agree with you that it took a long time, and it took all the way for 70 years until finally Abd al-Malik puts it in there. And what's fascinating, you go on to say, I find it, this is you, Khalid, furthermore, I find it interesting that that's me, ignores other evidence that go back much earlier than Abd al-Malik coins, such as the early Islamic Quranic manuscripts. And that's the point. And in some ways, you've come into this kind of from outside. You don't realize that one of the reasons why we're excited about the coins is because they actually support what we already know about the Quranic manuscripts. If you look at my earlier videos on the early manuscripts, the ones I did with Al-Fadi about a year and a half ago, we've already dealt with the manuscripts, and the manuscripts are the most troubling thing. The same question comes up again. If there is a Quran that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, who then had it written down and was canonized at the time of Uthman in 652, where is that manuscript? As we do know, according to the traditions, in Al-Bukhari, volume 6, hadith number 509 and 510, when Abu Bakr first had Zayd ibn Thabit write that first Quran between 632 and 634, gave that Quran to Hafsa, who put her under her bed, and for 20 years it stayed there. Uthman then comes and has Zayd ibn Thabit rewrite it a second time, and then sends it out to all the provinces. We know there were 9 provinces: Basra, Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem, Cairo, Alexandria, Aden, Herat, and Nishapur. That's 9 different provinces. There should be 9 Qurans. And you're saying, Khalid, you're saying that these Qurans are there. Where are they? We've been asking this for quite a few years now, and since I did my debate with Shabir Ali back in 2014, I was asking this: where are these earliest manuscripts? Not just 4, we want 9. We want 9 manuscripts, and these are all in cities and countries that still are under Islamic control and have been under Islamic control or Arab control, as we're now finding, for 1400 years. Except for Jerusalem, they're still under Islamic control. The fact that the manuscripts don't exist and don't begin to appear until the time of Abd al-Malik, and most importantly until the time of his son Al-Walid, who comes to power in 705. The fact that they only really begin to appear in the 8th century. All of the earliest manuscripts, that's the Topkapi, the Samarkand, the Ma'il, the Huzayni, the Petropolitanus, and the Sana manuscripts, the 6 major manuscripts. All those manuscripts are from the 8th century and on. The fact that there is nothing before that time is why we're even bringing, and why we're so excited by these coins, because these coins now finally give us show us what's happening in that first early period, where the manuscripts don't even exist. Then you go on and you talk about the Birmingham manuscript, and you zero in on the Birmingham manuscript, Khalid, and you say the Birmingham manuscript, for example, has been dated no later than 645. That is what they're telling us, and that is the carbon dating that was done by the Oxford lab in England, and they dated it from 568 up until 645. Now here's what's interesting. Go and see what people have been saying about that, because in 2015, when these came out and when BBC had headlined it, and when I think it's Dr. David Thomas or something Thomas, when he came out and made this claim that this is the earliest Quran, this is the same time that the Prophet lived, it follows his dates. He was born in 570. This was written between 568 and he died in 632. This continues up to 645. I can understand why Dr. Thomas made that claim, because it's his manuscript. He wants to make it famous. But what's fascinating to me is not many Muslim scholars, especially look at the ones from Saudi Arabia, those from the Middle East, they're not claiming this as the earliest Quran for a very good reason. Take a look at it carefully. First of all, it only is only 2 folios, front and back, just 2 pieces of paper. And they are from Surah 18, Surah 19, and Surah 20. Look at the stories there. The story of Moses, the story of Dul Qarnayn, the story of the 7 sleepers. These are not really Islamic material. This is pre-Islamic. These are borrowings from other texts, the Bible included. But what's more fascinating is they have, if you look at it carefully, if you look at the images, you will see that there are surah endings on there. There are showing where the surahs end and where the new surah begins between 18, 19, and 20. That you don't have in the earliest manuscripts, and that's why the earliest scholars are not really accepting these dates. What's more, they also, if you look at it, you will see that carbon dating itself is, in and of itself, a very inexact science. If you want to take the dates 568 to 645, you have before we get into carbon dating, let me just do this. Let me just say this thing. What's more, here's another big problem. If, let's say, the last date, 645, is the strongest date, or is even, if that's the date that this was finally written, that's 7 years before Uthman even gave the Quran that we have today. The canonical text that we have today comes 7 years after that. So this predates even the canonical text. How can you have a text that already has 18, 19, 20? It's in that order, 18, 19, and 20. The earliest manuscripts are not in that order. They're all over the place. The earliest manuscripts do not follow a sequence. That, according to all the earliest scholars, was only created at the time of Uthman, 652. And this is 645. That goes against it. But let's talk about carbon dating, because carbon dating is problematic. If you want to take the carbon dates on this one from the London lab, then you're also going to have to take the carbon dates from the Sana'a manuscript, which have been given to the laboratory in Zurich. Another one, there's one, I think, one in Zurich, one in, and I can't remember the one in Germany. There's, of course, the Oxford lab, and then we have Zurich, and then we have Lyon in France. So we have Kiel in Germany, we have Zurich, which is in Switzerland, you have the Lyon lab, which is in France, and then you have the Oxford lab in England. These 4 labs have looked at the Sana'a manuscript, and they have dated it using carbon dating, and guess what the dates they come up with? This is the Sana'a manuscript, which is the more exciting one, which is actually an earlier manuscript than the Birmingham folios, and it is dated to, according to those labs, from 390 up to 550. 390 up to 550 AD. That means, according to all 4 labs with the Sana'a manuscript, that is before Muhammad was born, before the Quran was even introduced, before Uthman ever canonized the text, and before Islam even existed. So if you want to go with carbon dating, you're going to have to eradicate even the Sana'a manuscript. And that's why I would suggest, like Dr. François Doroche says, the best thing to do is not use carbon dating, use the paleographical dating, and that's why he himself would date those manuscripts much later. You go on with another question. Also interesting is that when he showed the Caliphate Protocols, for which he claims they contain no reference to Muhammad, to back up his claims, it actually did, because I could simply read it off in Arabic, and it says the Shahada, and you are correct. It does say the Shahada, and that Caliphate Protocol does say the Shahada for a very good reason. That's not one of the earliest Caliphate Protocols. That's not from the Sufyani period or the Marwanid period or even from the period of Abd al-Malik. That's Caliphate Protocol is the only ones I could get my hands on quickly to put it up there as an example for what we were talking about. I had to use whatever was available to me, and that is actually a Caliphate Protocol from the time of Al-Walid, who is the son of Abd al-Malik, and it's dated to actually it says Walid, but it's dated to 709. So by that time, by this 8th century, the Shahada was well used. In fact, it was used on all the Caliphate Protocols from the time of 691 on. So 709, it would be quite normal for the Shahada to be there. I should have put something in. I should put a disclaimer that this is not the earliest protocols from before Abd al-Malik. I just didn't have time to do it. Thanks for pointing that out. Then you go on in you say, I think James, that's me, thinks he has discovered a jackpot in trying to prove a 70 to 60 year younger Islam, yet he projects too much and unnecessary meaning onto the fact that there was a gradual introduction of Islamic references in early coins. No, I'm not saying this is a jackpot here. I'm just saying this is further evidence that Islam was probably begun later than what the Islamic tradition suggests. The fact that you or Khalid admit that there was a gradual introduction of Islamic references is important. I'm glad you've admitted that. But what's important is look and see what is admitted. Look and see what graduates. It's fact that Allah is introduced there by Muawiyah in 661, and then Bismillah is introduced in 663, but it's not the Bismillah we see in the Quran. Bismillah al-Rahman al-Rahim is not on that coin. In fact, when it's then, the Bismillah is then continued on the coin of 667, it's Bismillah al-Malik. That's not the Bismillah in the Quran. So it's not even the right Bismillah. And Allah, as far as the name Allah, that could be any one of the Zoroastrians or the Byzantine would use that name for Arabic, because that is the name that has been borrowed from the Nabateans. So that's the Nabatean word for God, Ilaha, which is then becomes Allah, the God. It's nothing more than a generic title, not even a name. It's a title. Now, I hope these responses will help you to see that there is a real problem here. Now, these correspond with what we already know. What is it we already know? Well, it's not just the coins that are telling us that the Islam started later. It looks like also what Dan Gibson found with the Qiblets. Those show that all the earliest mosques don't face Mecca at all. They face Petra up until 706. The first mosque that faces the first mosque that faces Mecca is not till 727. So the Qiblets support what the coins are telling us. All the earliest manuscripts of the Quran are dated from the 8th century on. So the manuscripts are supporting what the coins are telling us. What's more, not any of these Qurans are complete. Not any of the earliest manuscripts are complete, nor do they agree with each other, nor do they agree with the Quran that I have here. It's already in my bag. I'm heading off, going on a large trip early tomorrow morning, so that's why I want to get this through. What's more important is even the city of Mecca. The city of Mecca just doesn't exist. We don't have any reference to it until 741. And it doesn't appear on any map until 900 AD. So that also fits what we're finding to the coin. There was no one living in Mecca at that time. And that's why it's fascinating that even these earliest Arabs are not living in Mecca. All of those in the Sufyani period from the time of Muawiyah, even before that, are all living way up in Damascus. So far north, that's 1,200 miles farther north. Nor do we see also and also with the Dome of the Rock, I don't want to get into that. So these are good questions, but can you understand? We come to the coins late in our discoveries, and we should have really worked the coins much earlier, because the coins really are the only artifacts that are still around today that are from this period, this silent period of the Arab conquests, this silent period that exists from around 620s up until 630s, 640s, 650s, right up until 660s. So around 624, when Islam was supposedly, the Caliphate was inaugurated, up until 661, that 40-year period, there's just nothing to look at except the coins. And that's why we now have the coins to help us, to give us a foothold into what was really happening. And it doesn't look like this was much of a Islamic era at all. This is not the beginning of Islam. This is just a continuation, and Khalid, you are correct. It is a continuation of Byzantine Christianity in the western part of that the area, and the Sassanid Zoroastrian in the eastern part. And so it stands to reason then that these Arabs who were trying to identify who they were, give dates to what the coins were, and also were giving reference to their religion, are both Christian and Zoroastrian, not Muslim. And that, you can see, was introduced with Abd al-Malik starting in 692, and then really with a coin that's in 696. Well, great to see your responses. Great to see your questions. I hope I've answered them. There'll be more that'll come up, and we'll keep on top of it. And probably Hatun and I will do another live stream later on. Okay, then this is Jay here in Pennsylvania. Over and out.